Call to order the regular board meeting of the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago. Good morning. My name is Maricel Hernandez. I'm the chair, and with me today is Commissioner June Brown
Present.
and Commissioner William Cressy.
Also present.
Next item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda. Any proposed changes? If not, we will proceed. We do not have any minutes today, so we will proceed with the Executive Director's report. Mr. Holliday, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Brown, and Commissioner Cressy. To begin, I would like to ask for a moment of silence for Cook County Clerk Karen Yarbrough, who passed away this Sunday. Thank you all. Clerk Yarbrough was a dedicated public servant, and our thoughts are with her family and her staff at this time. Well, the March election has come and gone. As we all are aware, there was a close race between the Democratic candidate for Cook County State's Attorney that shined a spotlight on the exhaustive canvassing and auditing procedures and processes that takes place over the 2 weeks after the election. I would like to thank Assistant Executive Director Sandra Spare in leading the management and the staff through this process of this election, as well as giving thanks to the staff. We will be having our post-election assessment meeting on tomorrow with all board departments to identify improvements to the reporting of ballots information and processing and procedures of our board. Once this is complete, we will issue a report to the commissioners on these post-election assessment and improvements heading into the November 5th general election. Candidates for the elected school board are currently circulating petitions. For the new office, our general counsel will give more details. Yesterday, I virtually attended the latest ranked choice voting task force meeting arranged by the Illinois legislators. The task force heard additional comments from the election authorities in Illinois about voting machine readiness as they prepare to draft their final report. The task force will be meeting next week on April 15th. On next Monday, I'll be traveling to Kansas City, Missouri for the U.S. Election Assistant Commissioners, the EAC Standards Board annual meeting. And again, I would just like to thank the staff for the job well done for this election. And special thanks to our Public Relations Director, Max Bever, as well. That's it. Thank you.
On the ranked choice voting, was there anything, I think last meeting we talked about viewing national issues or national programs that were using it. Did we do that input, or are they doing that with the state?
Well, we're trying to get a list of the jurisdictions that are using ranked choice voting. But on yesterday, the conversation was more on readiness of the equipment and having, if ranked choice voting was chosen to have with this state, having the state board do the ranking, not the local jurisdiction. The state at this point doesn't administer elections, and they don't do any counting. They gather data from the Illinois jurisdiction, but what was kind of being suggested by, I believe, is a young lady from Fair Vote, is that the state would do the tolling or going through the rounds of the ranked choice voting, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Mr. Lasky.
Yeah, if I may elaborate on that, because I was at the meeting with Mr. Holliday yesterday. The bill that's pending, so the center of the conversation is to have ranked choice voting just for presidential primaries. And so since that is a statewide, it's not a statewide office, but the election happens at a statewide level. This discussion was that the local election authorities would each transmit their election results data to the state board, and the state board would have to do the tabulation. because it is a statewide, that is the way it works presently, right? The state board does receive, we will be sending copies of our proclamation to them by statute, overnight mail, and I'll take a copy down to the basement. They take the data and they compile it. Some of the issues though that are not addressed is we saw a lot of pressure in this canvas period to get the results done fast. And when presented with that kind of a topic yesterday, the person from the woman from the advocacy group talked about, well, you'll be able to publish your first round of results. And then you send it and the state board will tabulate your additional rounds because remember, ranked choice voting can happen in 3 rounds or 5 rounds of tabulation. But what doesn't seem to make sense about that is that on the one hand, you want people to get their results faster. That's what the public is asking for. But the whole notion of ranked choice voting is that it'll go to multiple rounds. So that's going to definitely delay the process.
So we would have candidates 1 through 5. We would not rank them. We would only send that data to the state.
Which is the first tabulation, which
That's
is
the
like a
first-
normal
exactly.
election. Right.
That's the first tabulation, and then the state would have to get all the results from all of the election jurisdictions, and then they would start doing the ranking
Yeah.
if necessary.
And another thing I think that the legislators at the committee meeting heard loud and clear was from General Counsel for the Illinois Republican Party, John Fogarty, who's a member of the evaluation committee that's been created. He pointed out that under the rules for the Republican Party, which is not dissimilar to the Democratic, with these presidential primaries statewide, I think he says it's 10% of the delegates get assigned based on the popular vote of the statewide vote. But that means that 90% of the delegates are doled out by congressional district based on those actual delegate elections, separate elections that would not be a part of the ranked choice voting. So his point kind of was, what are we doing here when we're at most going to talk about 10% of the delegates for a Republican primary election? We're not even changing things for the other 90% of the delegates that are elected by congressional district in those specific delegate elections. So I walk away from that meeting not knowing which way the legislators are going to go. I think they heard some concerns. One topic that did not come up in yesterday's meeting was all the additional expenditures we've talked about previously for educating our poll workers so that they can then educate the judges. Because our poll workers have to, as we've heard just today, our election judges really need to understand the system that they are operating. So that just to chime in and to add to Mr. Holliday's observations.
So the task force is actually just doing processes and procedures. There's already been a decision made to move forward with ranked choice voting.
No.
No decision, because that would have to be state statute.
A state statute, but I mean, the suggesting, that's the way they're moving towards suggesting it?
Well, I would, in my honest opinion, I would say no. The more testimony that the legislators hear about this ranked choice voting, it's kind of taking them off of the fence, moving towards one side than the other. So right now, they're just still hearing testimony, and they really haven't made a decision.
Okay, and you mentioned you're going to the EAC. Wouldn't they have some information about ranked choice voting?
And the jurisdictions that have that.
Yes, once I'm there, I will look into that and see how many of those jurisdictions are participating with the ranked choice voting and what type of procedures, and try to see what their cost for that is.
Well, I think what we need to do is from EAC, they could easily tell us the jurisdictions that have ranked choice. And then we internally have to look at those jurisdictions, the ones that are comparable to ours, and start off with those and contact those people there. But there has to be, now that this election is over, I think that has to be moved up in terms of priorities, so we can be prepared and know what, what our responsibilities will be, and what are the costs? There may be some costs that have been incurred by other jurisdictions that we are just not aware of. So there's a lot to be looked into, and we need to do that now.
And I think that's exactly what the committee is starting to realize too. From
Which committee?
the House, the legislative committee that was meeting yesterday, along with the task force.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the task force is bringing to them, is kind of opening their eyes to a lot of these issues that they had not been contemplating before, because when this legislation first came through, they basically heard from the national organization and nothing else.
Yeah, but I always say, we're the ones. We have to act as if they know nothing, and we're the ones, unfortunately, that bear the responsibility, because it's going to affect us the most. Bear the responsibility of finding out what all the issues are, what the obstacles may be, what the benefits are, and make sure that any committees looking into this become aware. We have to be at the forefront. So let's start with the EAC next week, and it would be great if he would report back to us. Okay.
Right.
I will.
Look forward to hearing from them, because they have a wealth of information on a lot of things, so I'm looking forward to it.
And if I may, one other thing that troubles me a lot in this is, for want of a better term, spoiled ballots. We know that in voting now, if a voter votes for two candidates in a vote for one race, it's a spoiled ballot. When there are so many ways of voting, especially the more candidates and the way they rank it, there is a greater chance, greater propensity actually of spoiling the ballot. I saw a couple academic studies. One, San Francisco uses this, Minneapolis uses a form of ranked choice voting. And usually spoiled ballots are in like the 1% range, and there were more in the 8 to 9% range. And I think New York City also had a very high percentage of spoiled ballots. And when you've got that high, I mean, when you get close to 10% of your voters that are essentially, we're not counting their votes because of the way that because of the system, that troubles me a lot. So in addition to which jurisdictions currently use some form of ranked choice voting, and there's a couple of different forms of it, I would also like to have the data on the, as I say, spoiled ballots, and that can go by, undervotes, overvotes, things of that nature, because that is taking the vote away from the voter. And so I think we can.
That would be included.
Thanks for bringing that up. But in addition, what I would like to know from those jurisdictions is what were the reasons for not counting? How was that ballot spoiled?
Right.
What are the limits here? What are the boundaries here in terms of a spoiled ballot due to ranked choice voting? So.
It can be as simple as if you have 5 candidates that you're ranking, but you accidentally mark down 2 candidates for your second choice, and now your whole ranking system is screwed up.
The whole ranking system is screwed up, but do you still, at least, is the ballot counted for candidate number 1?
I don't think they did in New York.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, that's the question.
It's voter error. I mean, it gets a more complicated method of voting, which is going to
Yeah.
increase voter error.
Yeah.
And when you talk about getting information from other jurisdictions, it's my understanding there are already some jurisdictions that have adopted ranked choice voting and then moved away and abandoned it
Yeah.
already. And
Yeah.
Some
I'd like to
counties,
talk
too.
with them.
Yeah,
Right.
I have a 97-year-old mother who votes in New York.
Yeah.
And it's difficult.
Yeah.
And, she votes for one candidate
Right.
because that's what she's used to. And,
One person, one
God
vote.
forbid she, at 97 votes,
She sees it, she does it.
yeah.
I think it's rather telling that the governor of California, who used to be the mayor of San Francisco, where they have ranked choice voting, when a bill came on his desk to expand ranked choice voting in California, he vetoed it. So I think from his experience, we should, from that lesson, we should take a lesson from that, maybe we should look deeper into this.
We need to examine every possible issue and every, you know, every possible circumstance that could happen, both good and bad.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Holliday, and now we will proceed with Assistant Executive Director Sandra Espera.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioner Cressy, Commissioner Brown. I will start my report with the final count of election judges that served this previous election were 6,040, and this includes 1,088 high school students. The final count of election coordinators that served were 1,243. The Judges Department is currently working on their payroll. The Election Central call center was successful. It received over 3,000 phone calls on Election Day. I was at the warehouse overseeing the post-election procedures, which includes the processing of obvious discrepancies and the 5% retabulation of Election Day and early voting ballots. I'm holding a post-election assessment meeting with our staff tomorrow, Wednesday, April 10th. I will be attending a post-election meeting with Tenex representatives regarding the poll book this Thursday, April 11th. The Minions representative will be scheduling post-election meetings with our staff. These meetings will begin next week and will be completed by the end of April. At the warehouse, staff is sorting voting equipment and supplies. They're also organizing and cleaning different areas of the warehouse. Lastly, I really want to thank our staff for their hard work in this past election. And this concludes my report.
Thank you.
I know we had new poll books.
That is
new
correct.
Poll books.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we do have a post-election meeting with them this Thursday
Okay.
regarding the poll books. With
Okay.
But the fact that nobody has said anything about the poll books, by the way, is a major success. Yeah, it worked pretty well.
Very pleased.
Good.
And our election system stuff
And
worked pretty
yes,
well too.
and our touch screens, everything, seemed to have gone very, very smoothly. Very happy.
One
Thank
quick,
you.
one quick question. We we know we have the legislation now, hopefully making it permanent, the idea of keeping our, what we call early voting centers open on election day as voting centers. Do we get a large number of voters showing up at those centers on election day?
We have
Max would have
Have I
that.
address that real quick? Because
Okay.
we've got those numbers right in front of me. But we had over 19,339 ballots cast at vote centers for over 190,000 ballots cast on election day. So that's nearly 10% of voters are choosing to vote at our vote centers on election day.
Yeah.
And that's pretty well matched to previous elections. And we see that continue to grow year after year and election after election.
And that's pretty much over all of the vote centers, or like just the super site, or?
Really, throughout the entire city. Our higher voting wards see some of those higher in those vote centers. Super site is still our most popular site, but pretty well covered across the whole city.
That's fantastic.
And the most important thing to me is they're great backups in case any one of our polling places experiences a problem. We can direct people to the vote center. We have all the touch screens there that we need. Everything is set up, so that's what's extremely important to me.
Madam Chair, that is extremely important to me too. We have not had to hold open late any precincts ever since the vote centers have been open, because for those precincts that don't open on time, the voters have all been able to go to those other locations and vote. It's been tremendously helpful.
Where is the legislation at this point?
It's got a sunset clause of, I think, July to 2029, so it does get us through our 2027 municipal cycle plus the 2028 election. I've been told by our legislative liaison that it's most likely going to continue either to get extended, or to become permanent.
Okay.
But we will, as we approach summer, as we approach 2029, we'll certainly be talking to the legislators about how successful it is for Chicago. Our voters want it. Don't take it away.
I think what may be good is some kind of correspondence to the powers that be, the relevant persons, and stating exactly how
Yeah.
this election was so successful, and partly due to our vote centers, how it continues to grow participation at the vote centers, how we haven't had any polling places that we've had to keep open because of the vote centers. So I think that would be good. It's a good reminder, and
It's good documentation going forward. We
Yeah.
should do that after each election.
after every election.
Right.
Max and I have both been keeping statistics on the vote numbers, but it's also, as you know, Madam Chair, the big story really is not just the total numbers, but the fact that that's people who have an option so that they get to vote when they might not otherwise get to if their precinct couldn't open on time. Or we had one location, remember, in 2020,
Yeah.
the pipes burst in the
Exactly.
voting room and flooded the voting room in the afternoon, but there was a vote center block and a half away.
Or voters who, because of where they work or childcare issues or whatever, have that ability. So
Yeah.
I think that's fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, you talked about statistics, hit me. So with all of the costs, not just of the general office, but for the election administration, can we get something like vote, price per vote? On those statistics you're doing? But I mean, in general, for the office and with all the languages and operations and everything that goes into it, so we can see what the efficiencies are?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. There's so many different costs. And so many different
Right, but I mean in general, and then you have a general number and you know what that price is, what's working for us. And all that. As you're doing your approach efficiencies, when you said statistics, that came up to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll continue with our public information director, Mr. Lasker.
Mr. Lasker.
Trevor.
We've
Hello.
changed your title, Adam.
Sorry.
You finally shared.
Sorry.
But-
Two meetings in a row.
well, thank you, commissioners. I'm Max Bever, Director of Public Information. Well, on top of new poll books, we also had a new website for this election. This was our
Right.
first website, our first election with our new website. I, for one, could not be more pleased with our revamp. We have more improvements planned, but ultimately, we are able to communicate changes to the ballot in real time, to polling places in real time, including a fire that broke out in the 16th Ward polling place the day before the election, where 2 precincts were moved. We're able to post that and email that out to every voter within the 16th Ward and within that precinct to let them know. Application deadlines and voting information were posted as messages on the homepage to reach voters as soon as they visited the website. We were able to watch web traffic in real time for the first time. We were pleased to see that we were successfully driving people to our pages at the right time. Early voting, during early voting, and especially as that was wrapping up, vote by mail as those deadlines started and passed. And now we can see candidates for the elected school board finding our resource page and getting the information they need without having to come downtown. We received good feedback on the functionality and the accessibility of the website, and we've received some good feedback on what we can improve heading into the next election too, especially with your voter information page, looking to simplify that for voters, take out the zip code, just make that a bit more easy for people to use. But we're getting there, and I look forward to building a timeline with our vendor for these improvements through the next year. For advertising, I'm pleased to say that over 80% of advertising was once again spent in non-English language publications. Our strategy there is that our English language publications cover the election quite extensively, as we well know. So with what we do have, we try to reach as many different community members and also within our Black and Latino communities in Chicago. I do want to say a big thank you to our community services team for their work in this space. Even as they were working 6 to 7 days with voter outreach throughout our city's neighborhoods, they were getting these placed. We did digital campaigns, we did paper newspapers, we did radio, we did television, video, and podcasts. It really expanded our footprint to prepare for our larger push heading into November for the general election. Also had excellent feedback related to our new bilingual judge signage that was present at early voting sites and polling places. Worked hard with our community advocates on that program. Had good engagement. So even in a lower turnout than we would like to see, we had a lot of engagement within our neighborhood and community teams and feedback on that signage and a lot more knowledge base of where our bilingual judges were and assigned to leading into this election, and looking forward to do it again ahead of the next election. We had the same feedback for our accessibility tier rankings. That was a lot more visible on our website. People were able to access that information both in your voter information as well as our full list that had the rankings from high, medium, and low to no. Again, we're happy to see that we had the most of the fully ADA compliant polling places heading to this election, to previous elections. Will probably be improved even more heading into November, and we will make sure to communicate that out. And for events, community services and communications, we're planning several events throughout the summer focused on voter registration, election judge recruitment, and ballot and voting machine demonstrations. We'll keep the board up to date on these events. So we don't have much of a break. We've got vote by mail applications open again on August 9th. So we definitely have a lot of communications and community services events and planning taking us through the summer before we get back into our ballot season, as well as we're heading into electoral board season in just a few months too.
Are we doing the community?
Yes, we are having more conversations for that to take place in 2025. We feel that
2025?
yes, so we will get past the general election. We will have opportunity to have 2 elections under our belt, to have feedback of our new tools of 10X and our new website, get additional voter feedback. We'll have the space in 2025, and that was our initial plans to hold a much more fulsome event than try to fit it in between these 2 elections with our diminishing free time on our schedule.
Okay, well, we'll I think, discuss that further. Any other news, comments?
That ends my report.
Okay.
Just two quick things. Voter registration is reopened, correct?
That's right,
And-
both online and by paper.
Okay, and I just want to say the website, I've had the chance to look at websites of other jurisdictions, and we really have sort of the gold standard now with our website. The other jurisdictions, the functionality, the breadth of the information they cover is limited. So we've got a really good looking website. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I also give a lot of credit to the voters of Chicago. We had thousands of replies to our survey that was sent out to all the registered voters. We've gotten feedback from our community advocates and neighborhood partners in real time. It's been a very collaborative process, I think, with the voters of Chicago, and we look forward to continuing to improve it.
Thank you. We will now proceed with old business, which I think we have addressed: infrastructure projects and changes in election administration, including electronic poll books and voting equipment. I don't think there's anything else. Is there, Mr. Holliday?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. Next item is legislation. Mr. Lasker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did receive an updated report from lobbyist Derek Blada. I'll forward that to you. It's a bill, the remaining bills list. The House and Senate committee passage deadlines have passed, so he's removed from the list any bills that were not approved by those committees. Some have extended deadlines, but he says that the vast majority of Senate election bills remain in subcommittee. He says no substantive House election bills have passed out of the committee this year. There are still some bills on the list that we're concerned about, particularly one that would allow units of local government to opt out of being an early voting site, and another bill that would allow schools to opt out of being an election precinct on election day. Still no answers as to where those legislators would like us to hold elections if we can't do it in public buildings. I'll forward you the list, though, and you can analyze with more detail. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
We will now proceed to new business. First item is approval of the revisions to the board's 2024 election calendar. Mr. Lasker, can you just explain what's?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, thank you. There was a bill that passed and signed by the governor, and it included the districts for the 10 school board districts that will be filled by election this upcoming November. Nonpartisan election to be mixed in with everything else on the ballot for this November. So we now know the signature requirement for those candidates is a minimum of 1,000 signatures, a maximum of 3,000. So our 2024 election calendar was originally adopted on August 22nd of last year, but now I've added this information and other detailed information about the qualifications, eligibility qualifications to be a candidate, to hold the office. I've included a link. The State Board of Elections has updated their calendar, their candidates guide, to include a sample petition form specifically for this office. So I've got a link to that in our calendar, and just other information pertaining to the fact that we're going to elect 10 representatives to the school board this November. Then the mayor will appoint another 10, because it's actually a 20-member board, and the mayor will appoint a president of the board. So there's 21 total members. 10 will be elected, 11 will be appointed. Everybody serves for 2 years. And then in 2026, in that November election, all 21 of those offices will be filled by election. It'll be 20 districts. The district maps are already on our website. Commissioner Cressy, as you've asked about, there's also a citywide map showing the 10 school board districts.
Excellent.
And our map makers are still working on the dividing lines where the 10 districts will be subdivided into 20 after the election.
Okay, great, thank you.
One quick question with regards to the revision. The number of petition signatures is set by statute now between 1,000 and 3,000.
Correct.
Most of our petition signatures, it's some percentage of the number of votes. Is that going to change? Is there any indication of that, or is it going to remain at those fixed numbers?
The legislation keeps it at these fixed numbers. So unless they change their mind, which I doubt, I think they'll keep it at a fixed number.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the revisions to the board's 2024 election calendar in relation to the office of member of the Chicago Board of Education?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item is the renewal of a software licensing and computer and server maintenance and support contract with Esri. And we have here to explain this a little further. Okay, Rick Thurman. Rick, good morning.
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 Hi. As Charles said, I'm Rick Thurman. I'm the assistant supervisor within registration for the districts and boundaries, the MAP department. So we do have a periodic annual license renewal from Esri, the company that makes the mapping software. They've typically, what I've heard is they probably have like about a 70% market share. It's probably higher than that, really. They're pretty much the standard original, the Microsoft, if you will, of mapping software out there, for better or worse, just like Microsoft. So, but this particular software license would cover putting the software, or keeping the software on our 5 desktop computers that we have in the department, as well as on a server in the IT room that will allow us to have a little more flexibility for how we go about sharing files back and forth between us, and just continuing to make maps as we went through the redistricting process. And as it turns out, we still have more projects coming, whether we like it or not. So we want to be able to make certain we can keep up with the demand, because certainly I think some of the most interesting things we've had pop up, like the school board, we didn't know what we were going to do, and we didn't know when we were going to do it. So we just had to be ready. So that's what the various licenses that are mentioned in the proposal are for.
Do we have any questions?
And we've had no problems with the software or with the maintenance.
Oh no, they've been really responsive. Part of what we're paying for with that license and maintenance is a phone call, and they answer their phone calls pretty well. So
An actual human being too.
oh yes, and they know what they're talking about. So
The software companies, you're never quite sure.
yeah, no, in this case, no, we're talking to some people in California, if not people here in Chicago. So we have both.
Okay.
So that part is the software, the backup support is pretty priceless there. It is interesting that we're talking about some of these other issues coming up. We have several different things going on. The electoral history, that's one kind of project that I've been thinking about wanting to get going, is to have a better set of map series that would show how people have voted, and to the extent that we can do so with election Tuesday voting, vote by mail, early voting, vote center, and see if there are places around town where maybe we could get better support and show that data in a way that is sensible without violating any voter privacy at the same time. And this software helps us do that sort of projects.
Excellent.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve a software licensing and hardware maintenance and support agreement with Esri Inc. for continued use of the ARC GIS professional redistricting and mapping system at a cost not to exceed $34,279 over the term of this agreement, which shall begin April 22nd, 2024 and continue through April 21st, 2025.
So moved, Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. And thank you, Rick, for your presentation.
And
Really
for all you do.
appreciate And
Yeah.
everything you do, yeah. Pivotal. Next, we will hear from Mr. Lasker on legal report, if any.
Thank you. I also just want to tip my hat to Mr. Thurman and the rest of his team downstairs. It's a fascinating job. I find it to be fascinating what they do, and they do a great job of it. They really got those school district maps done very quickly. I think pretty much before people even started asking for them or realizing we'd be ready. They got it done and got them online, and that was great. And then there's also certain things we don't even think about that are important. Rick and I have talked about that he would like to embark upon digitizing and getting into that master database the local option issues. Remember, you can vote dry a precinct, but then our precincts change, and so those numbers change, the boundaries change, but the area that's dry stays the same. And so to map all the different years and all the different layers and have it then be electronic so that we no longer have to keep going back and looking at paper would be a tremendous project that Rick is enthusiastic to get started with when the time comes. So anyway, thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
I was very pleased to represent the Board of Election Commissioners on March 21st at a conference here in Chicago held by the National Judicial College. I told you all that I was heading to that. They had requested, it was a 2-day conference on election law. They had specifically requested having an attorney from an election commission. I was honored to fill that role. I was on a panel, sat next to retired appellate court justice Matt DeLort, who you know had a tremendous history in election law. As a private practitioner, he's also now serving as a hearing officer for us. Also on the panel were Laura Jacksack and Ross Seckler, and it was very interesting to be in a room full of judges from around the country who hear election cases in their different states under different kinds of laws. It was a very interactive panel discussion. They had lots of questions. It made it a lot of fun. Judge Porter from across the street attended, and she's very clearly one of those judges. I mean, all the judges across the street care about the election cases, but she's there to learn even more. So the panel was hosted by New York State Judge Phil Szilagyi, and then we also had dinner that evening with the Georgia Secretary of State, and that was Brad Raffensperger, and that was a very fun event as well. So, and beyond that, we've got plenty going on. We're heading into the off season, but there's always work to be done to get ready for November. We've got some changes we're going to be preparing for petition filing with the school board candidates, and there's different brand new legal matters involved with that because our parent conformity powers have been expanded statutorily as a part of this legislation, where it actually talks about the board not accepting and not filing petitions that have certain flaws in the nomination paper package. That's a new style of a parent conformity authority. We're going to have to work out procedures for that on petition filing week. So it's time to start looking towards November.
We will now proceed to the financial reports. We have a balance sheet and voucher listing for the City of Chicago, a 2023 appropriation number 23-10, dated April 9, 2024, in the amount of $1,985. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. We also have a balance sheet and voucher listing, again for the City of Chicago, a 2024 appropriation, number 24-02, dated April 9, 2024, in the amount of $1,272,558.50. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. And lastly, we have a balance sheet and voucher listing for the County of Cook, a 2024 appropriation, number 24-02, dated April 9, 2024, in the amount of $3,676,147.68. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Do we have
Quick
any-
question, a question for, I guess, Mr. Holliday or Mrs. Sparrow. On the financial reports, are we in the midst of preparing the budget, upcoming budget, and is there a narrative with that?
We haven't started, but we will, since the election has passed and after all our department meetings, we will start looking at our budget for 2025.
Okay, because I was just looking,
Like
I had a
beginning
couple
in May?
questions from this.
Pardon me?
Would it be in May then, or June, that you start?
Well, our budget is normally, it have to be submitted maybe by the end of July.
Mhm.
So mid-May or even sooner than that. Again, once we finish all our meetings, we will start. We'll gather the information with our finance director, Kimberly, and anything we need from HR, we'll get all that together and start working on our budget.
Commissioner Brown, did you have a comment?
No, I'm good. I just had a couple of questions about this one, so I'll get with them when they're doing it.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any requests for public comment today?
Nope.
I do not hear any requests for public comment. Is there any for executive session?
No, not today, Madam Chair.
Okay, if not, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
And seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes and we're adjourned. Thank you.